Welcome to Ciao Bella, Living Italian Style. I'm your host, Barbara Ann Zippi, and today I'm going to share with you some of my adventures in Abruzzo. And upcoming in the show is information and photos and even some music from artist and composer Maurizio Russi from the village of Loreto Abruzino in Italy, my family's hometown. And also, I'm going to take you to some of the local cemeteries in Italy because you really do need to see how they treat and respect the people who have passed and where they rest them in peace, whether they're in ashes or they're in a cemetery plot. So it's going to be interesting for you to see the comparisons to the cemeteries here in the United States. But first up, I want to talk to you about what's in front of me, and that's my coffee pot collection. Actually, I should say they're pieces that I've acquired through the times through my grandmother, and then added to the collection of espresso pots. And a lot of people say espresso, but it's actually ESP, espresso. And what's interesting is this was one of the original old-fashioned ones. These cups are too big. I'm on an antique find to find the right cups that go under here. But this is really interesting, and you just open it up. It's the greatest coffee in the world to make, and it's so easy because you open it up and you see the cylinder. The cylinder pops out, so you can only fill it up with so much in grinds, and then you put water in the rest and close it up and let it do its trick. And I will say that it shouldn't be tightly packed. They do like to see a loose mound on top of that filter when you open it up. So every one of these opens. I certainly won't do it. But as you can tell, if you're having company, you make this size. This is a 2-cupper. And again, you can only fill it up so much. And then it will go into this spout once you put it over the heat. So if you're trying to use all those fancy machines, that's really great. But if you get a chance to pick yourself up one of these, there's nothing like it. This is my grandmother's. I don't know how I got a hold of this, but this ground her coffee beans. So she would put her beans in here before it was even a mod thing to do, to buy beans. So if you have a chance to enjoy a cup and try a cup of espresso, you might want to put sugar in it, and that's perfectly acceptable. You might want to squeeze a lemon rind in it, and that's good too. And then, you can always put Sambuca in it or anisette, and that's a good topper any time of the afternoon or evening. But let's go into my friend. When I was on my recent trip to Loreto, I had the chance on my last days in the town to meet this artist, Maurizio Russi. And he took me into I met him in the field of an exhibit called No Man's Land. And it was out in No Man's Land in the villages outside of Loreto Abruzino. And the best thing that happened to me that day was running into this artist who asked my cousin Simona, bring her by my studio. And we did not know what to expect. So first of all, he had this book published on him by Lucretia di Domizio Dorini. And please forgive my Italian in pronouncing the name. But what's great about this book is that throughout the samples of the book itself, and did I have the page ear lighted? The pages are actually, it doesn't matter, the pages are actually in French, Italian, and English. And it's a wonderful book because it goes all over the world like he did on his art exhibitions. And interestingly enough, Maurizio hasn't had an art exhibition in the United States. So I'm going to bring you some shots of his studio, if we could get into them. And like I was showing you, his book that I went home with, which is a wonderful coffee table book, and filled with all his artwork and his story. Well, this is the first thing. First of all, Maurizio is a child prodigy from the age of 5 in music and in art. He came from a family that valued that in the early 1900s. And this is one of his latest things that he's playing with, and that's the image of light. So this is the back of one of Maurizio's creations, and in this is one of his new concepts of playing with the light medium. So I was saying to him, Maurizio, your pieces on display here, the back of them are just as interesting as the front. Now you'll see in the next picture another one of his concepts that he's working and experimenting on now are neon paints with some of his profile pictures and the light coming from that. He has started in so many, not started, he's mastered so many different fields of art, from renderings to architectural concepts to profiles and people. To me, his sketches and his work just emanates emotion. That's a beautiful little girl. Those eyes are just so captivating. And the range is so different. Now, in the middle of this picture is the woman who, Lucrezia, who actually wrote and published this book on Maurizio, his artwork and his life story going back to his grandparents. And there he is on the right side with Lucrezia at one of his art shows. This is part of his studio. His studio was in the garage part of his old ancestral home. And that trunk, I said to him, where did you get that? I have one exactly like that. My grandmother came over from Italy on it. Well, here, his grandfather went to America with that trunk, fought in the World War I American Army, was an American citizen, and then after the war in 1918, came back to Loreto and stayed to raise his family. So this is his corner and his trunk tribute to his grandfather. Now, behind this beautiful modern art studio is this room here that you could tell how old it is from the bottles of wine that are on the wheelbarrow and the wall that's holding all the homemade wine. Because no matter how talented he is with drawing and art with his hands and music, as playing piano, he's never lost the art of homemade winemaking. So he took us back into the back room, which was a treasure to see, all the relics from his grandfather and all the labels he makes for the different years of the wine. You see the silver cylinders on the right-hand side are what they keep the wine in today, as opposed to the barrels that they had before. But you walk in there and they could tap that tap anytime and pour a glass of wine into a bottle, into a glass for you. So it was really an honor to peek into his back studio. When I was in the studio, I walked in from a car ride. We had a few minutes in the town to leave. It was a couple days, I think I was leaving in a couple days. And my cousin said, we have a few minutes. Let's go to Maurizio's studio where we took these pictures. But when we walked in the middle of this studio is a beautiful grand piano. And he sat down and he played for us. And then I shot some video. So listen to this beautiful musical treat.
And it's not in sound.
Well, that was a wonderful treat from Maurizio Ruzzi. My cousin Simona was in the background over there, and you could see the various kinds of artwork that he does besides drawing. He uses pieces of cardboard and cement, old construction pieces from buildings, and this village was built in the medieval times. So he puts them all together, pieces of wood, into these beautiful renderings and pieces. So if you're ever in the Abruzzo region, and more people are going to start to visit, you'll have to reach out to Maurizio and visit his studio in Loreto Abruzino. And I want to thank him for opening his doors up to us. Also, you could check the Italian American Herald's website. And in there, we have an article on Maurizio when he was just about homemade wine season coming up. And you could catch some other articles that are featured in this monthly issue. So right now, the digital August issue is now online, as are past ones. And you can sign up when you visit www.italianamericanherald.com. And you can get a free newsletter too. So check that for the latest in upcoming events in the region, or to list your calendar of events. If you have a carnival coming up or a church function and you would like to be listed, it's free to list your calendar of events at that website. So that's a nice service of the newspaper that I work with all the time, and I'm proud to be associated with. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about what happens when we lose our loved ones in Italy. Because in the United States, we certainly have our cemeteries for all different religions. They have all different practices. And more, many people are getting cremated, and there's room for that in our cemeteries as well. Well, when I used to go to the village with my mother, and I've been going to Loreto Abruzino with my mother since 1976. Always my mother would go to the cemetery, and she would say to me, Barbara, do you want to come to the cemetery with me and Uncle? We're going to go to the cemetery. And I would go, no, Ma, that's all right. I don't have to go to the cemetery. You go to the cemetery. I'm going to go out with the younger generation, my age. So now on this recent trip, I've since lost my mother as we get older and we lose our relatives. When I went to the town, and I hadn't been there for a while because of COVID, and some of the older relatives that I had known have also passed in the town, I said to my cousin, actually one time Simona and one time Irene, I said, I really need to get to the cemetery. It's something I feel like I have to do because I just have to do it. No matter when I step foot in this town, it needs at least one visit. So here's my visit to the cemetery. Now, this is the one in the neighboring town next to us, but this is how they put their death notices up. When someone dies, they don't have a daily newspaper that they could put obituaries in like we do. The newspaper systems are different. And social media, they have social media, and they certainly are on it, but that's not how they're getting the news on who's passed. They put up leaflets and on bulletin boards like this all over sections of the town with the different people that are in the area. And sometimes you drive to the town to read that to see when everything is. But everything happens fast in Italy. So this, as you can see, we're going to look at the first cemetery we're looking at is in the province of Tiramo. And I had gone to visit my girlfriend Sonia, who's Abruzzo Sister Tours. She's living in Castel Castagna. And this is the cemetery at the foot of the hill of Castel Castagna. And on the outside, beautiful, stone cement work to go in through there. You could see at the top a little bit, this is a better picture, at the top you can see the church on the hill. So the cemetery was always in certain proximities to these towns that were on the hill. The cemeteries were at the bottom of the hill. What we would call a mountain, this is a hill to them. And so then when you walk in, it's beautiful, old, beautiful, and different, because there really is no rhyme or reason to the construction or the layout through the centuries. There's things back there from the early 1700s to modern ones today. The bottoms, the grass are all stone, brick walkways. And in every cemetery in Italy, at least in the villages so far that I've seen, there's usually one centerpiece mausoleum, and it's usually for, might have been whoever the top rulers were in the town of the day. And then all of the cemetery gets built around that major mausoleum. Here's the cemetery grave. It goes back to the 1800s. And the next picture shows you how they've taken an old grave that was a wooden marker piece, and now they put a stone, looks like an onyx marker cross on the top of it. But that certainly wasn't there when those people passed away. And then right next to it, you might find a completely modern display, which are all up to you and your family. It's not anything that of course you have to get pre-approved for things, but you do the work. You build your own resting place. So that's just some of that's, you can't really see it good, but that's an old metal cross. The next picture tells you the, when it was in the 1800s. I'm going to have to start wearing my glasses when we look at pictures. So now, and look at the creativity that they used. It's amazing. This display was all pebbles, but you know that they sat there for hours to construct that as the passing of their loved ones. And every cemetery, they have the brooms, they have the water cans. Everyone's responsible for cleaning up their own loved ones' areas. And they make it pretty easy for you. When you get to the video, we have video on my cousin's mausoleum. So what's up next? This is in Loreto Apertino. This is the Nobilio mausoleum outside of the town of Loreto Apertino. And their brushes was hidden in the wall. And this just fascinates me. On the wall on the right-hand side are actually the drawers of past relatives. My grandmother's nephew, Remo Nobilio, Simona's dad, is there. Her grandmother, who I got to know and have some crocheted pieces from. Notice she's sweeping the dirt outside the mausoleum and not down those grates, because the grates in the floor actually have more drawers underneath that mausoleum. And so they rotate after so many years. Oh, that's her sister Carla. And so under that grate that she's sweeping on top of are actually maybe four more drawers. 4 drawers at the top. There might be 4 drawers at the bottom. And then they rotate the bones and ashes after so many years. Now, I understand it's like 20 years, but don't quote me on that. They recycle that. Now, this is the Acciavati site, my grandfather's side of the family, my mother's father's side of the family. And of course, if I go visit the Nobilios, I have to go to the Acciavatis. Now, the Acciavatis just made this mausoleum not too long ago, and my uncle and his 2 sons, Ovidio and Roaldo, helped him construct it. and he doesn't have the drawers are all filled up yet. When I went there to visit, he had just passed, and my cousin was showing me the spot, and that's for their entire family. And you could see the grate at the bottom exists over there too. And you put in your own decorations, you take care of it, you maintain it. Is there another one coming up? Okay, this is a little different. This is a nobilio grave, but this is a Tommaso Nobilio, another relative, my cousin Zopito's father. And they have the wall, and that wall is all associated with past loved ones. And so there's a lot of different ways that you could choose sections. This is another interesting section because you only take a drawer in this section, but you could see how people put flowers. Now that man is cleaning because I was there a couple days before November 1st, which is All Souls Day. And they have a beautiful ceremony at the cemeteries during that time. And all of the graves have lit candles on them. It is absolutely moving. People come the week before, they wash and polish the stones. They put their flower displays up like this. They get their candles ready to light. And then on Old Souls Day, which is the day after Halloween here in the United States, it's a major holiday for them over there, and they light all the candles in the cemetery. Beautiful, beautiful. And this was another interesting grave. I believe this is my cousin's husband's uncle or father. I'm quite not sure. But it's done differently. And they don't have cement barriers underneath that dirt like we do here. Whatever they call the cement piece the coffin goes into. They just put the coffin on the dirt 6 feet under there, which was a surprise when I went to an actual funeral in a cemetery there. What else do we have? And here, this is my cousin Irene Acevati on the left, and my mother's only uncle that she loved dearly, Orlando Acevati. And this was on one of my first visits back after COVID. I was so happy to have gotten to see him because on my following visit back, he had passed, and he's taken care of me on every one of my visits since 1976 when I was 20 years old, and he wouldn't let me walk outside by myself with the boy that came on the street that wanted to walk and just talk to an American. And he was a great guy, Orlando Acevati. So that goes with our adventures in Abruzzo. You can't imagine that just living your life every day when you go to visit in one of these villages outside the major tourist spots, life is different than it is here. It's the same. The love of family and the respect for one another, but the traditions and how they celebrate certain holidays that we don't. They don't celebrate and get dressed up for Halloween. Very, very big business here in the United States. Not even 5% over there. But All Souls Day, it was a big one. So if you are looking for your adventures in Italy to come up, check out the Italian American Herald's website for some of our stories. Look around for other places to go. Besides the major tourist regions that you'll go to. Certainly if you go to Rome, and a lot of people will be listening in this fall, they'll be going. When you go to the Trevi Fountain, right around the corner, a hidden little alleyway I think it's less than $10 to get there, but there's a new part of the Trevi Fountain that opened up for tour, and that's underground at the Trevi Fountain. So when you go to Three Coins in a Fountain to toss your coins there to go back to Rome, go look for the underground museum to see where the water flows and how they excavated that. It's absolutely amazing. And as you're going into your travel arrangements, and you might have been to some of those major cities before, try one of the towns south of Rome in the villages where many of our grandparents and relatives came from in the early 1900s. It is an amazing territory to look at. So if you liked what you saw today, hit the like button here. Send us a comment if you'd like to see something special, or you have some questions on your upcoming trip to Italy. You can email me at ciaobella@gmail.com. It's real easy, and I'll see if I can give you some information that might help you on your journey. And I'd like to thank Radnor Studio 21 Mainline TV and my producer, general manager here at Radnor Studio, Kevin. He makes this show sing for me, and I really appreciate it because I love my travels to Italy, and I love bringing you the adventures in Abruzzo because it's a town worth visiting. So until we meet again, ciao Bella, enjoy living Italian style.